Hi everybody, this is the article summary part of the PowerPoint. This is a study that is focusing on family functioning, moods, and binge eating among urban adolescents. That is also the name of the article. The study is actually picking up from the primary article where it left off just explaining the correlation of family functioning, moods, and binge eating. In the previous article, it was more so identifying and addressing how each of those factors, each of the two factors, which will be family functioning and moods, play a part in binge eating. And the catalyst for the binge eating, and then also what possible therapy method would be best to use moving forward to address this disorder. So let's go on to the next slide. The methods that were used, as I previously stated, it did come from a primary study. The cues, the students, some of the cues were the students' dietary habits, which were examined by using the 5 constructs from the FACES measure, family cohesion, meaning the family working as a unit, family flexibility, willing to maneuver in all situations, good or bad, family communication, being able to express yourself, but then also letting others express themselves and being able to have a conversation about it. Family satisfaction, how satisfied are you, your role in that family, and then the roles that other people play within that family. And then family balance, everybody having equilibrium within that unit. 13 items from a daily effects scale for the mood. If you were feeling tired, irritated, lonely, sad, things of those nature were asked. And then 2 subscales from the eating disorder diagnostic scale, loss of control and embarrassment from binge eating were the names of those 2 subscales. Participants, this was a non-clinical population. It started out with flyers being sent out. I think they made about 3,000 flyers, and it led to roughly a little under 1,500 students responding. They reside in the San Dimas, California area. And as long as they were between the ages of 14 and 17, proficient in English, written and spoken, and they had no major illnesses and no medication for treatment of obesity, and also reliable transportation, they were able to be considered for the actual population sample for this study. So once everybody who did respond or were interested in participating, once they were screened, only 158 students were able to consent to the study. 57% were female, 43% were male. Of that sample, 83 were Hispanic and 17% were non-Hispanic. Also, the rate of obesity in the sample exhibits appropriateness for the sample to continue the process. Okay, and then the procedures, the first step was getting signed consents. Some children did have to have their parents sign off on the contract to complete the study, and that was just a measure taken for the sake of children that were not meeting the age requirement of 16. There was a 7-day period for assessment of the participants. And there were 3 types of reports that the students themselves were to fill out. and they were meaning they were self-reports on mood and meals. The eating reports was documenting what was being eaten within the breakfast, lunch, and dinner hours. But the eating report more so focused on breakfast and lunch, and then any snacking that happened between those times before dinner. And then random reports were if the researchers had wanted to know what they ate at a certain particular time in the day, then it was a matter of them just reporting back to them about whatever that was they ate. And then the evening report is to catch the dinner portion as well as late night snacking and seeing what those meals consisted of and what were their thoughts and feelings in that moment as they're consuming those meals. The results of this study show that there was a correlation between mood and family functioning in a positive way, that these do affect binge eating, but it was a negative effect that it gave. So I guess a better way to explain that would mean that mood and family functioning play a part in how high the levels of binge eating are. So, moving forward with the study and understanding what those results were stating, a little bit more in detail was stating that some of the moods towards binge eating, feeling tired or feeling stressed, they also had two measures that seemed to counteract those feelings of family functioning, which was family cohesion and family balance. And the results of the study exhibit the importance of negative effect, which was the mood and family functioning, as predicting and moderating factors of binge eating. The limitations of this study was that the students were self-reporting, and in my opinion, if binge eating was something that's mostly done in secret and it's supposed to be something that, they don't want broadcast, they could make it seem as if they ate less meals, or that they were happier than what they really were. Anything to put on that front. Not saying that that was the case, but it could have been something to consider with self-reporting. And then for number 2, as a limitation, difference in interpretation of some of the mood questions or mood feelings, as far as feeling irritated or loss of control, which is definitely loss of control, which is one of the contributing factors to what binge eating is. And then for number 3, measures of associations in an observational design. So it being that the study was observational and it was relying on self-reporting, those measures could not necessarily be as certain or correct as I think the researchers would have liked, just because we are going off of what the participants are reporting, and then as well as what they were able to observe when they were doing the study. The conclusion. This shows the importance of factoring effects of family functioning in studies for relationships with moods and binge eating. And it also kind of gave way to future use of family-based therapy with interpersonal models to focus on binge eating in adolescence, to hopefully give that breakthrough, because it's tying in the family support, and it's also addressing how that person is feeling in that moment that they are binge eating, and how to have that addressed, and then have that family support on top of it to hopefully stop the bad habit of binge eating. And then my first national web resource was the National Eating Disorders Association, also NEDA. Could be saying that wrong. I apologize. And this site was actually very insightful. It also offered a helpline, plenty of resources for people looking for assistance, and as well as just information with overcoming binge eating habits. My second web resource was the National Institute of Mental Health. And I know that this was more so one that I wanted to make sure it doesn't give off the initial inkling that, you know, I only wanted this to be a mental health situation, because as I stated with my article, it does focus on the mood of that person and family functioning as well. But I did get some good information off of the National Institute of Mental Health website. Also a lot of resources. And then if there was any issues with helping identify treatment programs, they were able to point you in the right direction in that aspect, as well as even joining a study to gather more research on the effects of binge eating. And lastly, I have my third national web resource, which is eatingdisorder.care. Going on this website, this was pretty interesting to me because it is catered more so towards the northeast of the U.S. as far as a treatment program, but it also has a lot of great self-assessment tests that I felt would be beneficial to somebody who may be struggling with, you know, coming out about binge eating if they are partaking in that behavior. They're able to do self-assessments to see if they meet the threshold of having criteria for that diagnosis. And then even a step further, if they have a problem that just needs to be addressed, whether it has been diagnosed per se or not. So I really thought that was a great website as well, for people who didn't yet know how to come forward with the problem, but just wanted to do a self check to see if, you know, it was to that extreme or not. And then if you're on the northeast of the U.S., they have a treatment center that they definitely advertise a lot on this website for any help that may be needed with overcoming binge eating. So that is all for my national web resources. And lastly, the reference page, and this is tying in the beginning of the PowerPoint as well as the ending of the PowerPoint. Thank you guys so much.